What is up, amazing people? You are listening to Release Your Inner Power podcast, where we share stories about experiences and the paths we have walked that make us who we are. There is encouragement, tools, and tips from special guests to help take those steps to release that inner power. I'm your host, Shauna B. Here we go. Welcome to Release Your Inner Power podcast. I am your host, Shauna B., and I have a guest today that is going to talk about being a mom, what pregnancy is like, working through pregnancy, after having your baby, postpartum, working through things at the hospital, and postpartum depression. And she really gets vulnerable and shares many things that she went through and where she's at today with all of that. She is a mama of 3 little boys, and she is also a coach that helps other moms take care of their little ones and themselves. She's got a bunch of cool tips and an amazing story to share today. So I introduce you to Jenna Hodge. Welcome back to Release Your Inner Power podcast. I'm excited about this conversation today about this mama who's going to share her experience and story with us. And I want to welcome Jenna to the show. Hi, Jenna. How's it going?
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm excited that you're here, and I'm excited for us to have this conversation and share your story. Tell me about you and your story as a mama and how you got to where you are today.
I have 3 little boys. I had them in 4 years, almost to the day, two days shy of 4 years on the dot. So my oldest turned 4 2 days before I had my third. And I had them young. I had them before like my peers did, and because we got married young and had them obviously pretty quick back to back. And so my motherhood journey was lonely for sure. And I had a lot of the things that could go wrong, did go wrong kind of thing. Not everything, obviously, but I did go through a lot of hardship in the very beginning. And so since I didn't have that motherhood community, it was a big learning experience for me because I was forced by default to figure it out or not. And I chose to work through it and was too stubborn to let that be my future and wanted to change it and enjoy my motherhood with my firstborn, much less any other kids I would have in the future. And just did a ton of research, went through a lot of stuff, and got to a much, much better side when I had my second son. It was night and day difference. So I had 2 under 2 at that point, and it was so much better than my first. And even though I went through some of it again with my third, like because I'd gone through it, I recognized it, like with mental health and the physical aspect of everything. And it sucked and it was really hard, but I think it was harder because I knew about it in a sense. Sometimes ignorance is bliss, but it was easier in the sense of like, this isn't foreign to me, but it was harder because like, okay, this is my third. Why is it happening again? Especially since my second one was so much better. So all that to say, obviously it doesn't matter how many kids you have or how old you are, like whatever, like every pregnancy, postpartum, birth is so different, just like every child is different. So never assume that your one story is going to be the same for all the rest of yours, you know?
Yeah. And so when you're saying that you had situations and things that happened and that could go wrong, would you be willing to share one of those stories on how you did get through that and what what you did to get you through to the next?
So yeah, with my first, it kind of started with my birth. I chose to get induced at 41 weeks because what did I know? First child, I was 41 weeks. I was done. They offered me to get induced. I was like, sure. Didn't really know what all that meant. I was just done, ready to get him out. He was showing no signs of coming anytime soon. And I was miserable at that point, obviously. And I got Pitocin, which actually wound up not doing squat as far as progressing me. They kept upping it and upping it, and I'm like, am I supposed to feel anything? Like, this is really weird. So then eventually after a few hours of that, they're like, okay, do you want us to break your water? I'm like, sure. Again, this is my first experience. What do you want me to say? No, yes, like, I don't know. So I said, sure, why not? And they're like, I'll be back in a couple hours, check on you, see how you're doing. And about like not even probably 10 minutes later is when my contractions like boom started kicking in as soon as she broke my water. So at that point, I had a lot of Pitocin in me mixed with like, so synthetic contractions mixed with real contractions, basically. And so I didn't like gradually get into labor. It was a boom, like immediate, you're in like real active labor all of a sudden. So I never got like the break in between the contractions, not the wave where you can like, breathe and whatnot. And so I had a really hard time breathing, number one. I had a goal to do it unmedicated, but again, first time you don't really know your pain tolerance and what it's going to feel like till you're in it. I got to a point where I was like, because I didn't have that break and that gradual ease into the process, I was like, I can't do this. Like, give me the epidural. Straps don't bother me. So like I wasn't worried about the needle. It was just like I was at least gonna try. Like, I just want to say I tried to go natural. Like, why would I just automatically say no epidural when I've never even felt the pain? I didn't know what it was gonna be like. But it was so rough for me that I was like, that I can't. I know it's gonna get worse from here, and I can't continue this way. So I got the epidural, and I'm a pretty like lightweight when it comes to anything medication wise or anything with any kind of possible side effects. Like, I can't have too much caffeine. I get really jittery. So just epidural alone, like I already felt weird. I got like really violent shakes. And then, like I said, I already had a ton of Pitocin in me. Who knows if I had anything else at this point? I felt really drugged up. I did not like feeling that way, feeling like out of control of my body and my awareness and surroundings. Like, I could still feel stuff. But I was pushing, I couldn't breathe, and they had me flat on my back, of course. And on top of that, I couldn't breathe because of that. So they had to give me oxygen. And I was getting very frustrated because I could like feel stuff but not feel stuff. And I could see the look on their faces that like all the effort that I thought I was putting in was not progressing my baby at all. Like, and so it was just kind of like fighting a losing battle in a sense, but I felt very powerless physically. And it was like I was watching everything kind of in slow motion as like what I was feeling and seeing versus what my brain was perceiving. And it wasn't like it was like I was there but wasn't there. And it felt I did not like that feeling of not being in control. So when he finally came out, he was blue. He didn't cry immediately, and my brain registered that like something's wrong, but I didn't. My emotions didn't catch up to it quick enough because, like I said, everything was so weird, and no one said anything. But I could see, like I said, the looks on their faces. I can tell they handled it well, but it was enough for me to notice, like, okay, I'm putting two and two together. But it's because he was stuck in the birth canal for so long, and then eventually he did cry and he was fine. But I remember them telling me like I tore severely, which they said they did so many stitches they stopped counting. Like I was in the the delivery room before I got to the postpartum room for a long time with them stitching me up and whatnot. Um, it felt like hours. I don't know if it was, but it felt like that. And so I tore really bad. I had all this stuff in me that's like just not natural for my body. I felt very weird. Like I could not walk because I was so swollen from all that pushing and the tearing. Couldn't walk for days. I had to like sit on that little donut pillow. It was extremely painful. And then a few days after I got home, I developed a really high fever, um, out of nowhere, and I was like shaking on the ground from the fever. Like I felt terrible. Found out, took me to the emergency room, found out I was like super close to getting a kidney infection because when they put the catheter in for the epidural, I told them it burned and they said that'll go away and kind of dismissed me. And then as time went on, I got more and more drugged up, so I wasn't really aware of it. And that can cause UTIs, and that never got addressed. And so I was on my way to a kidney infection. I also lost some stitches too early, so I had to get restitched. This is like a few days postpartum, and just very in a lot of pain and discomfort, obviously down there in my whole body. My breastfeeding journey sucked. Like every time he would latch, tears would fall because it was so painful. No one like taught. I mean, like the lactation consultant teaches you a little bit in the hospital, but like no one taught me like a schedule, how often he needed to eat. So I had actually like overproduction of milk. So my boobs were so engorged and so painful. I got mastitis, like my nipples were like cracked and bleeding. Like it was so, so painful. And then he also lost weight, not just didn't gain, but he lost more than just like a little bit that they lose in the beginning. To where like they were concerned that I was dieting and that's why he wasn't gaining weight. Yeah, pediatrician told me that. I guess because when she saw me, she didn't expect me to look as small as I did in her eyes for being early postpartum. I'm not a big person anyways, but whatever. And said like I need to fatten up my diet because that's why he was losing weight. Now, I learned that actually my milk was I had a high milk for milk imbalance, so like the fatty part of my milk was not that much. And also found out later that he had really severe reflux. So that was contributing to him not sleeping well. I wasn't sleeping well, therefore I was not healing from all that I went through. He wasn't thriving, I wasn't thriving, and we were both just like really depleted, not getting what we needed. And again, like I said, I didn't have friends, peers, anyone in the mom community. We weren't super close to family at the time as far as distance goes. So like they would visit a little bit, but they weren't like right around the corner. Um, so that was a very hard season. And because of all that sleep deprivation and all the things that we went through in the very beginning, it got the postpartum depression and anxiety like really amped up. I had severe headaches and rage. I hated everybody in the world. Like everything made me mad. I felt like I was um in like I was there, but I wasn't really there. Like everything was like a fog. And it was just a very frustrating, lonely, depressing season that I just felt like out of control. And I was like, I'm only a few months into this motherhood thing. There's no way it's gonna continue to look like this. Like I've got to get sleep. He's got to get sleep. He's got to grow. Like I've got to heal. At this point, you think like, will I ever look the same again? Will I ever feel the same? You always think that at the very beginning. And of course, when you get years down, you're like, of course it does. But when you're in it, you don't know, especially as a first time mom, you don't know how that's all going to wind up. And so I got to really the point where I was like, this can go one or two ways. Or three ways. I can, being really dramatic, I can end it. I can accept it and not try anything and just like this is my fate in a sense, or I can do something about it, and I'm too stubborn to accept the other two. So I was like, I'm gonna do something. Like I'm gonna make this happen the way I want it because I'm a control freak. So I'm gonna make my life as enjoyable as I possibly can. For me and my son, for our family, and I did a ton of research on his sleep. Like I said, got him diagnosed properly with acid reflux. So he was eating better, got him on medication, therefore he could sleep better because he wasn't screaming in pain when we would lay him down. And got him sleeping independently and on a schedule and feeding him on a schedule. So I wasn't in pain with breastfeeding and all that. And then I got to sleep and rest and heal. And shortly thereafter, all of that, once that like leveled out and I felt like me again, is when I got pregnant again. So it was a totally different experience that time.
Well, first I want to say, holy smokes, girl. That's a
Mhm.
lot. That's a lot. And to go through it,
Yeah.
you're probably like, I mean, at that point, you were probably like, really?
Yeah.
Something else? Seriously? Like, I'm
Yeah.
just trying to make this work here. I'm just trying to get better and heal and do the thing.
Mhm.
And then,
Mhm.
yeah, there's a point where it can be too much. What I'm really impressed by, like how, I mean, I'm going to be frank, like how many punches you took, really, right? Like how many times you got knocked down in like one of the most fragile friggin' times of a woman's life. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, creating a human in our bodies and then the process for them to get here as
Right.
well as the after. It's like I feel like more of the focus is like during pregnancy and then,
Mhm.
depending on where you are, it could be a controversy, but it's like some places are like, hurry up, let's get the baby out. And then some
Yeah.
places are like, no, let's, take the
Yep.
time, let baby come when it wants to, right? And
Mhm.
fortunately, you were in the let's hurry up and get this done. And therefore, all these things happen, unfortunately,
Mhm.
right? And then afterwards, I feel like after the baby comes, it's like you said, like they help you a little bit, but it's almost like if you don't do all the research, if you don't find what you need, if you don't, and how are you supposed to know that when you're a
Right.
first time mom? You
Right.
don't know that.
No
Like,
one does. No one does.
no. And
Mhm.
like you said, your situation and kid is all different. Everything is different. Every situation's different, but it's not like we should have more things for after. Like there
Mhm.
needs to be more focus for after because that's the trench. That's the hard part.
That's
That's the part,
yes.
you
Yeah.
know, because you have to not only take care of yourself, you are protecting this little human being that, that is now here. And now you're like, okay, it's tough
Mhm.
as a family, but you're also trying to heal. And then, yeah, like you said, sleep. I
Yeah.
mean, you can't heal unless you sleep. And if you're not
Yep.
sleeping, it's just this vicious cycle of no, thank you, you know?
Mhm.
I'm really curious. I mean, I commend you for all the punches that you took and that you were like, I'm done. Like you laid it out. Like these are my options that I have and which
Mhm.
one am I going to take? And you were like, no, I have to change
Mhm.
it. I have to, you know, do something different. Like, did you notice, was it because of how you felt and just because you were done and frustrated and like all of that, that you were just like, something has to be different? And that's
Mhm.
when you laid it out. That's when you laid out your options and then decided that way.
Yeah, because it was so, like I said, I was either crying or mad.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I was either crying from the pain, from the loneliness, from I mean, I was young, like my body just changed in so many ways overnight, like, and how I physically felt, not just how I looked too, and all of that. And then, like I said, the mental aspect of it with like the hormones shifting and everything, and how crazy that can be. And it's not the same every time. Like I said, my second was 9 day different, and then I kind of had the same experience again with my third. So, but yeah, just where I was mentally and physically. And then, like I said, it's not like he was just doing great over here either. So it was kind of a double whammy. Like, like I'm young. Like I got a lot of life left, I
Right.
hope. And so does he. He just started. So like I'm not continuing down this, and I don't want just one kid. Like we wanted more at some point, so I didn't want it to like I said, start that way.
Yeah, of course. And of course, right, your picture of what you had, in
Hmm.
your head of how it was supposed to go. And then when it doesn't go that way, also you're fighting the expectation thing of like, oh crap, it didn't happen like this, and now this is happening. And it really gets into your head. It really gets in there. What
Yeah.
brought you to like when you said you did a lot of research, like what brought you to
Hmm.
sleep and like going there first? Like what when you made the decision that you
Hmm.
things needed to be different and change, like what brought you to sleep for your first thing to try to work on?
Hmm. I think I actually, if I remember correctly, I did the reflux thing first and then the sleep. We tried the pediatrician and no knock on them, but that's not a specialty they're trained in. So we just got prescribed Zantac for him, which doesn't really work because you have to change the dosage as the baby grows, and babies, especially little ones, grow quickly. So that just didn't really scratch the surface of what he was dealing with. So we went to a pediatric gastroenterologist who specializes in this. And that's when we got him on like a prescription medication, and he stayed on that actually for a whole year. Um, but uh, yeah, I started there and then really dove into the sleep. And just because, like I said, like you can't heal if you're not sleeping. And it was causing me to be a person I didn't like, and I'm one that needs sleep. And now that many years later, I know that as us as women, we actually need more sleep than men, just physically and hormonally and all of that. And if we're typically the primary caretakers of another life, then we really need our sleep. Um, so yeah, that was one thing that I was like, this is a non-negotiable. Like I need my sleep, and so does he.
Did you find that it was like the change was like smoother and quicker after you did your research with the sleep? Like, could you tell, like, were things changing? Were you not so, angry and like either angry or crying? Was there actual
Hmm.
moments in there where you're like, oh, I'm actually a normal human being right now?
Yeah. So he was born at the end of May, and I think from what I can remember, like November was when things were like solidified.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure we got him diagnosed with the acid reflux in September, and then I was working on the sleep in between September, October. Um, and yeah, November I feel like is when I started to feel like a normal human being. So about 6 months postpartum,
Yeah. What
which I know
actually
some people go like months and years without sleeping through the night, but I just wasn't.
not
I'm not
happening?
about that.
Yeah. You're like, not happening here.
No,
This is
I
gonna
couldn't
be.
handle like 4 months of this, much less like, no, thank you.
Yeah, I totally hear you. I'm like
Mhm.
you. Sleep is important. That is
Mhm.
something that I need. So yes, I
Yes,
completely understand.
yes.
So what after did the sleep and stuff, did you and things were moving in a better direction?
Mhm.
When did you realize, like you were talking about postpartum depression? When did you realize like, oh, this is like I'm in this. This is actually what it is. Because when you're in the fog and you're like angry and crying and all the things,
Mhm.
you're not like, oh, I
Mhm.
have postpartum depression. Like you don't just,
Mhm.
it's not
Right.
something
No,
that
you don't. You don't.
like when did you realize that this is what you were going through and then you started doing other things to support yourself? What were those?
Um, I think once I realized like, okay, it's been more than a few weeks, it's no longer baby blues because that's normal. Okay, I don't want to say normal. Typical. That is very common to have baby blues because of all the adjustment that your hormones go through. But if it's lasting months, and you're still crying often, and I'm not typically a crier anyways, um, and feeling anxious and like all that kind of stuff and paranoid and like depressed and all that, then there's something deeper going on, you know? And I think a lot of it was like situational combined with hormones. Because like I said, like it was just boom, here you go. I'm young. I don't have a mom community, mom friends. Like all my friends and peers are still out living their lives at that age that I'm no longer living. And we're in a city a little further away from our family. So like it was just me and my baby all day long, pretty much till my husband came home, from work. And so like it was just Groundhog Day over and over and over and over. And it wasn't like Groundhog Day where he slept on a consistent schedule and I could be productive while he napped and then we get to do fun things. Like it wasn't like that because I was miserable, not healing, not sleeping, not no consistency. He wasn't getting consistency, so he wasn't sleeping, eating well, getting well, like all the things. And so it, I didn't know what tomorrow was going to bring. Kind of, even though it was kind of like a Groundhog Day, but I still had the uncertainty of like, I don't know what our plans are. I don't know what we're doing. I don't know how he's going to sleep. I don't know what I'm going to. And that uncertainty like really gets to you after a while when it's just like on repeat. Like that's your life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. What sort of like what through the process of you working through it, what were the other things that you did or changed for yourself
Um,
to get you through that? Once you had the realization and you knew, like what did you do to get you through?
I was very open about it with my husband because he saw all of it, obviously, and I admitted it. And like, I feel like being open and honest about what you're going through and like, um, not hiding the tears, the frustration or whatever. And like we were new parents going through that together, and um yeah, I think just being open and honest about it with him because I can't remember how open and honest I was about it with anyone else at that time. It's like I wanted to be, but I didn't know how to say it because anyone who was offering me advice in that season was like far removed from that season of life. So I didn't really feel like I could relate to them. Like it'd been like 20, 30, 40 plus years since they had kids. And so I just felt kind of really separated from all of that. So I did deal with a lot of it silently, but like I said, he knew, and it wasn't until like I figured things out for my son and for me and getting him consistent and whatnot that I started to feel like confident and like we had consistency and routine and like I said, and then quickly it was like, here we go again.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you said that your second one was different.
Mhm.
It was like night and day. but then your third one was very much like your first.
Mhm.
So when it was like night and day, like can you explain? Can you
The
explain?
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly think part of it had to do with the season, like the actual season. Because my first and third are May babies, 2 days apart. And then my middle one is a September. So I think like the season of when I was pregnant and postpartum, just me personally, like being postpartum in the summer was miserable. I live in the South. It's hot here in the summer. And when you are healing and postpartum and you're breastfeeding and you have someone on you all the time when you're hot and sweaty and you feel gross and you can't like wear layers and cover up to heal in your postpartum body, because it's too dang hot, then it's just like you feel like you're kind of fighting a losing battle and it's frustrating versus like if you're healing in the wintertime and things are slower and you can get all like it's not that big of a deal. I feel like having a September baby was so much just I enjoyed being pregnant in the summer more than I enjoyed being postpartum in the summer. Just my personal experience. So I was more active in his pregnancy. I ran up until 29 weeks. Um, and part of that was kind of the season. I also wasn't allowed to run for a little bit because I had partial placenta previa with my first. So just out of caution with that. But then it got resolved and it was fine. But then I was too big to run. So I was just more active. I was working a full-time job with my first one, so I feel like I had more like water retention when I was working at a desk all day versus in my second. I didn't have a job. I was chasing baby slash into toddler. So I was just more physically healthy, which helped a lot. I was determined to never have an epidural again if I could possibly control that, because of the whole catheter issue and just how it all made me feel. So I was like, I'm doing this unmedicated, which I did. So although that hurts like none other, the healing afterwards is so much better. Like you feel like yourself. Like I could get up and walk around. The only problem I have with him is just losing a lot of blood, so I was a little faint. But other than that, like I felt good after him. And I think because I was physically healthy during his pregnancy, then that helped with my healing process as well. And then as far as like the taking care of them, like I already knew what to do and it wasn't that far removed for me. So like I felt really confident, like, here we go again. It was very fresh in my mind still. And now I knew what to do in the very beginning as far as his sleep, his feeding schedule, all of that. So it just kind of like smoothly transitioned into the two under two. And my oldest like loved him from day one. And I think it helped that he was younger, so there was no like jealousy really. Um, he doesn't remember being an only child, so that I think that whole part of it was just so much better. If that makes sense.
No, it does. It totally does. And like you said, you knew like the signs and things of like, okay, this is when we need to start doing this. And you knew a little
Mhm.
bit more to it was like following what you had just learned from your first one
Mhm.
with the signs and symptoms that you had as well to not go back basically down that path. So
Mhm.
then when you had your third one, do you feel like you were more prepared? Or was it more of like in the fog and then you're like, oh, this is happening again type situation?
With my third, he as a baby was fine. Knowing how to take care of a baby, not a problem at this point. Like knew all the things like the back of my hand. Adding a third child, anyone who has three children or more will tell you probably the third is what like changes everything for your family. Like you're now outnumbered. It just anything from three on up. I've like anything above three is basically the same as three. Like just the same amount of chaos. It's no longer just like equally balanced.
Yes.
So adding a third in general was a lot for us, just in the adjustment. Um, and actually going into his birth was not good. I got a very, very severe stomach bug um at 38 weeks and 6 days to where I thought I was going into labor. And like I vomited on the side of the interstate on the way to the hospital in the middle of the night. Like it was rough. They're like, no, you're actually not in labor, and because you're not 39 weeks, we can't induce you. So here's like some morphine. Um, and go back home, sleep it off kind of thing. And then the next day was my oldest fourth birthday. I still felt like bad, but like, okay, maybe I'm all right. And then the next day I had it all happen again, for like 4 hours straight. And I'm like, there's nothing left in me. Like, is this gonna hurt the baby? Like, I'm 9 months pregnant and puking my guts out and feeling horrible. And so then the next day I started like cramping a little bit. I'm like, finally, my body's going to go into labor on its own for the first time ever. I didn't include that in my second birth. I chose to get induced, but I skipped the pituitary and I just had them break my water because I knew that's what happened last time. So I got naturally induced, if you want to call it that. And they didn't know if it would work. And I'm like, trust me, it'll work. And he was born 4 hours later. So I didn't need any of that stuff. So that was my plan with my third. If I wanted him to come on his own, but my body had never done that yet. So when I started cramping, I was like, this might be it. And then I got there and they stopped. And that was the third time at this point I'd been to the hospital with false labor. And now I had kids that had to go back and forth to grandparents. And I'm like, I'm past 39 weeks. Let's just do it. I've been miserable the past few days. So they did that again and he was born. But I had just gone through this whole whirlwind of health stuff. Now I just went through birth. So I just didn't go into birth like in a healthy state physically. Um, and we were not prepared for it. And then a few days after we brought him home, my boys got that same stomach bug, my older two, and I couldn't heal and rest from birth and was immediate like in mom mode. Thankfully, my newborn was fine, but I didn't get to rest and recover from not even a week after like emptying my body of everything it had in me, and then a baby, and just having to go take care of my kids, and make sure no one else in the house got it and all that. So it was high stress from the very beginning when he came into the world. And it was summertime now, so no school. So I had them all three home with me, because my husband had to go back to work, and it was like, good luck. And it's hot now; it's summer, So just like kind of all of that, just not the most ideal situation. And physically, just like my body was just rough from day one. Like it just didn't adjust from healing from birth. I felt like things should be moving along by now, and they weren't, because obviously my third, I've been through this before, and it it was a very long, hard process of mentally getting to the place I needed to be, and physically, because mentally I did notice the postpartum depression. Like I was in a fog again, like didn't want to be here. The only thing that made me happy was my baby at the time. That was pretty much it. And I told my husband that. I'm like, I know I'm not okay. I don't know how long this is gonna last. It sucks, but I'm just letting you know, like this is where I'm at. It got more severe with him as far as like negative thoughts I was having, than with my first. Um, but like I said, having my baby like really kept me going. Obviously, I don't think I would ever act on anything, but I had the thoughts that led me there. Um, and sorry, I lost my train of thought. So yeah, that was a long process of kind of getting there, and I had really bad brain fog. Like I could you could have a conversation with me and I would forget like, everything you just said. And so like mentally I felt off. Like I felt like a lunatic. And I was depressed and all this, and I'm like, and my world just got rocked all of a sudden. It's like, here are these three boys, and heal from everything you just went to physically. Bye. Like you're on your own. Um, and they're home with you all day because there's no school, and so it was very like chaotic. And I had to go through like the mental part like took time. It took a long time, and then because my body wasn't healing in the way I wanted and expected it to, then you tie in the emotions too of all that. um and I went to like several doctors, and a lot of them didn't take me seriously, and I'm like, I feel like something's off. Like I don't feel right. This hasn't been that long. I've done this before. I'm not old by any means. Like I'm relatively healthy. I'm not a big person. Like I shouldn't look the way I look at this point in my postpartum journey. I shouldn't feel this way. Um, and so I just worked with a lot of doctors, never really got like full answers, but slowly I got into like more of a holistic journey. Um, did more research on my own because that's what I do. When people don't listen to me, and I'm like, well, there's an answer for everything. I believe there always is. There's a cause for everything. There's a reason behind everything. And so I'm going to do what I can on my end to fix it. It was just like kind of slowly over time, like things started to get better. I did work with a functional medicine doctor and some things. Um, and then actually it wasn't until recently that I worked on like, she worked with me on some hormone stuff, but then I learned some other things about hormones, and I'm like, I wanted to do this as naturally as possible because, like I said, I'm not old. I don't have like all these problems or anything, but I'm having these problems that look like I have real problems, and it's like not adding up. For all the effort and work I was putting into taking care of myself. Like I was getting sleep, he was sleeping good, like I knew how to do all those things. I'm active, like I eat well, like I was trying to prioritize me amidst all the craziness. And it's not until like a few months ago recently that I've finally gotten into like healing my gut too, and that has helped so much as well. But again, some stuff and research I've done on my own to where it's all the trial and error and all the like try this and that didn't work and this and that didn't work, which is frustrating and wastes a lot of time and money, but it's finally led me to like here 2.5+ years later.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, good for you for being so diligent about, like not just going to the doctor and then being done. You're like, no,
Mhm.
something isn't
Mhm.
right. Like you said, there's an answer for everything. And I'm going to go and research my little heart out and
Mhm.
figure out what I need to do next. So good for you for doing that. Because some people, especially with being in postpartum depression, might not have, might not have it. They just, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like
Yeah.
everything they're going through and doing, they just might not have
Yeah,
it
I get that. And
even.
I told my midwife too, she could tell that I at the like 6 week, like how they ask how you're doing mentally because they know. And she could tell that I wasn't doing good. And she like offered, like the first all the medications. And I've dealt with anxiety pre-kids, so I've been on Zoloft before. Like I've done that whole route. I quit it cold turkey on my own without telling my counselor, and I don't advise that because my body went through withdrawals and no one knew. So if you're ever on medication, please don't ever do that if you want to get off. It's not a wise decision, but I was just determined with everything I'd gone through pre-kids, what I'd learned about myself and the mind and just like anxiety is a control issue. And once you learn and accept that it's really fear and you deal with that on your own, like, and accept that like, do I feel like medication has its place? Yes, to an extent, but like we have so much control over our mind. It's insane.
Mhm.
And so I told her no, like I don't want that. I know I need something, but that's not it.
Yeah.
So I declined the medications because that's just what they want to push you to.
Yeah. Well, and you know yourself best. Like
Mhm.
you know yourself best.
Mhm.
No, that's not it. Let's try something else. But
Yeah.
I mean, I love that you actually went through and tried different things. Like you just didn't go down one way and was like, okay, that's it. Like you kept
Mhm.
trying and you kept figuring out what was going to work best for you.
Mhm.
And then it worked out, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
When you said that you did a really that you were pretty diligent about taking care of yourself and prioritizing yourself, like what do you do to take care of yourself? What do you do for like your me time to make sure that you can fill yourself up so you can show up for your family?
I like to work out. Being physically active helps a lot. I danced my whole childhood, so I had to quit because of an injury, but I still like to move my body. I like the endorphins that it gives me, sweating, like going for a run, being outside, lifting weights, all of the things. And I love like my work and doing what I do doesn't feel like work. So like that's like my I don't like to say me time, but like something I do for me because I feel like as moms we need something outside of being a mom and not waiting until our kids are grown to like, oh, start that process. Cause like we only got one life to live and I'm not wasting 18+ years of my motherhood like waiting, you know. My kids are so important, obviously, but they're not the end all be all of like who I am, you know. I was a human being pre-kids and I still am and will be after they're an adult, you know. So it's ironic because that's part of what my work is because I'm a mom now is coaching moms is like what I do, but it's still like what I chose and my passion and like I have to find something outside of that.
Yeah, let's talk more about that. So you coach other moms. So what do you tell me your process of what you coach moms on and how that works for you?
Well, it's kind of a wide variety of things, but basically what I didn't have with my whole experiences, both pregnancy and beyond, of that support and someone to tell you like here's what to expect, here's how to handle these things, someone who's been there and gets it like through some of the hardest stuff like the PPD, PPA, like healing, advocating for yourself. both, like I said, in pregnancy and afterwards, advocating for your kids, getting them on a good sleep schedule routine, potty training, like handling their emotions, their development, and making sure mom's taking time for herself. How does that look with your schedule and your life? Like, um, doing more than just the bare minimum of personal hygiene. Like, there's not a day that goes by I don't shower. Like, I go to the bathroom alone every day. I have three boys. They've never gone to the bathroom with me unless they were babies, like setting those boundaries for yourself. How do you realistically and practically like do that? Time management, like balancing all the things without like making your head spin and depleting yourself. Putting yourself first so that you can serve and take care of everyone else in your life that you need to. Because if you wouldn't put your child in the hands of a caretaker that is so unhealthy they can't run and pick up your child, or too fatigued and might fall asleep on the job, or too malnourished and like might pass out from low blood sugar, like but a lot of us moms live like that, because we put ourselves last. And that's why we're ragey and snappy and emotional and not making wise decisions and all this kind of stuff, because we're not putting ourselves first for our kids to show them the example of like, here's how you're supposed to take care of you when you're an adult. That's part of our jobs as moms, is to show them and teach them how to be an adult.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So how do people find you if they want to work with you, if they're new mamas, or even if I'm sure it's like, even if they're in the trenches of being a mom, how do they find you to work with you?
I am working on my website right now. It was under construction for a little bit, but they can DM me on Instagram is a great way to get in contact with me. I'm on Instagram at Purpose Intended. That's my handle. That's also my blog. I started blogging a few years ago, but then got into coaching. So my blog posts are still there, but my coaching page is on that site as well too. So.
And I'll have all of that in the show notes too. So it'll be a quick look for people to find you if they want to come and work with you. Or I like to ask all of my guests that come on, because we have so many different things and we each bring something special to the table. Would you be willing to share what your superpower is with us today?
Mm-hmm. I guess some people may call it stubbornness, but you called it discipline. So I'd like to say discipline.
Yeah.
On something that I like, because yeah, if I'm like caring about it, I set my mind for it. Like there's no stopping me, basically. Like I'm gonna figure it out. I don't take no for an answer, basically, until I've discovered that no is actually the answer. Then it's okay. But you can tell me all you want, but let me figure it out for myself, kind of thing. Yeah. So some people, I guess, look at that as stubbornness, but like I said, if it's towards a good thing, then it's discipline.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story and sharing your situations that you went through. That was a lot. And so I appreciate you sharing. And if this was helpful to anybody that is listening, reach out to Jenna or me and share your story and let us know how it has touched you. And I'm so very thankful that you were on the show today and sharing your story. So thank you for being here.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, learned something new, or got some gems to take away that will boost your week. I release a new episode each week, so make sure to click that follow button to not miss what is coming next. If you love the show or want to share a story, send me a quick message. I love hearing from listeners. If you know someone who needs this episode in their life, go ahead and share it with them. I'm sure they would love you for it. If you are looking to connect more, check out the show notes for all the social links, my website. I would love to hear how this episode helped you and what you loved about it. If there's a topic you want to hear about, send that too. All right, ladies, now is the time to release your inner power.